All right, well, welcome again to today's webinar. My name is Alex. I'm going to be hanging out with you here for a little bit today. Thanks for joining us. What we're going to be going over here today is kind of a follow-up to a webinar I did a few weeks ago for some CPE credit. And in there, I talked briefly about fund accounting and some other areas of kind of nonprofit financial management, and kind of dropped the kind of link there that I work for a company called Applos. And so this is kind of a follow-up to that, telling you a little bit more about what we do as a software company and what services we can provide you there. And then specifically kind of how our software can be used or utilized for CPAs or bookkeeping professionals, really any kind of professional in the accounting field that might need access to multiple clients or organizations in the nonprofit space. So that's what we're going to be doing here today. So here I've got our website, and our website here is just Aplos.com. Now, Aplos means simple in Greek, and that's kind of the MO for everything we've tried to do here. It all started with kind of wanting to create an alternative to QuickBooks, but something that was very specific to the nonprofit space, because most softwares out there for the nonprofit or church customer was either a solution that was, hundreds and hundreds or thousands of dollars even per year, per month, that were very built out, but also very expensive. Or the alternative was something like a QuickBooks or Quicken or one of these other kind of business-related softwares, but nothing that specifically handled fund accounting for a price point that was doable for a small to medium nonprofit or church. And that's why we came into existence here. So that's kind of our flagship purpose here, is to provide fund accounting software for churches and nonprofits, typically, at least the majority of which are in kind of the small to medium-sized revenue range, but we also do have some more advanced features or tiers there that can be accommodated for larger organizations as well. So that's kind of our flagship. Along with the fund accounting, we also have a donations management kind of product there that snaps into the accounting, so you can track who's given to you, to what purpose did they give to, generate a contribution statement for them, receive money online, all of that kind of donor management functionality there. We also have some features as well as e-filing with the IRS for the 990 form. So a couple different products there, but one of them specifically that we're going to talk about here today is what we call oversight. And oversight is the tool that can be used for a number of different types of customer. One of which being maybe a nonprofit or a church that has multiple locations or chapters, different physical locations, to where each one needs its own set of books, but as an organization, they are still unified, so they need to produce consolidated reports. That's one way you can use oversight. Kind of the more popular and more in-demand version of oversight is for people that have nonprofit or church clients for whatever reason, whether you're a CPA or a bookkeeping firm, but you need to have access to all of your different clients and be able to kind of jump in and out of each account. And that's what oversight can allow you to do. So on our website here, Aplos.com, if you scroll all the way down and underneath the Get Started kind of footer here, you can click on any one of these links that say Software for Accountants or multiple organizations, but Software for Accountants here gives a little bit of an overview of what this product can do for you. So this can let you kind of easily manage your clients. So you as a CPA or a bookkeeper, really anybody that's got multiple nonprofit or church clients, you can have one oversight account and then have all of these different kind of sub-accounts underneath it that you manage, that you can either choose to pay for or have the customer pay for their own subscription, but you will have access to go in, get the financial reports that you need, or even perform accounting services for them, and then come back up to the oversight and then go to the next client. You can also have an easy solution for your clients. So each of those kind of sub or different accounts has its own subscription cost, its own set of books, its own chart of accounts, and its own users. It's a separate client for each one. So each organization can have their own users. So your client could be able to log in from wherever they are. Applos is completely online, web-based, and generally accessible through any kind of web browser you've got. So your clients can log in at any time, manage their own books, send financials to you, or you can collaborate online at the same time. That's very nice as well. And then wanting to increase your bottom line here. So this kind of gets into the kind of the not a benefit for your client necessarily, but more of a benefit for you as a bookkeeper or CPA that wants to service these types of clients. Using something like oversight can increase your bottom line in the ways of being able to work faster so you can serve more clients. So instead of having to wait for them to send financial statements or their reports or send you a backup file of their desktop QuickBooks and uploading it, you don't have to mess with any of that. You can just bounce in and out of each client whenever you'd like or whenever you need to. And then your clients can also contact you and have you take a look at things real time as well. And then as far as increasing revenue, there's an option there to become an Applos affiliate as well. And we can talk to you more about that later on if you'd like. Let us know in the question field if you have a question about that. But let's take a look at this actual tool here. So if you're ever interested in this, you can come up to the very top, type in your email address, and that will get you started with an oversight account, which looks like this. Now, I have a couple of clients already in here as just testing little organizations, but to just kind of show you what it looks like from kind of left to right, you've got your menu here on the left where you can go to the different areas of the software, which I'll show you here in just a minute. But then this dashboard is where you land and where you can dive in and out of the different clients that you have, which are listed here. So I've got all the way down from animal shelter all the way down to nonprofit ABC. So from left to right, you can kind of customize this to show some high-level kind of information for each client. So if you wanted to see what their total assets and liabilities and donor count is, as well as revenue and expense, you can add those. You can also kind of toggle which things you want to see there as well. So let me take a couple of these things off. Liabilities like that. And donors. You can also choose to roll up reports, which means if you had one of those situations where it's a multi-chapter or multi-location organization, but they still need consolidated financial statements, you can click this roll up reports to where you have a unified chart of accounts across all of the different sub-organizations. But then from the oversight, you can run one P&L and one balance sheet for all of them, summing up their figures for whatever date range you're looking at. So that's one option. But as far as CPA and client management goes, let me take out exchange rate here too. This management tool and task status would be something that you could utilize for your own business here. So for each one of these clients, you can click on this Manage tab here. And that will bring you into kind of a note-taking task management type tool that we've built in. So let's say you're managing a client and you want to record how much time you've spent or what tasks you've completed. So right here I have some tasks set up. One is enter transactions, 2 is reconcile with the bank, and 3 is pull reports. So let's say you have bookkeeping clients, and these are the kind of steps you take on a monthly basis to make sure that they're up to date. So you would come into this organization and say, for January, I have entered transactions and I've reconciled the bank, but I still need to pull reports. So that just stays unchecked. But now if you go back to the dashboard, it'll show you what tasks have been completed. So it can help you keep up to tabs with what has been done for each customer, as well as what still needs to be done for each month or, whatever period you're servicing them for. And then right next to manage here is where you can actually go into the organizations themselves. So that animal shelter. If I were to click on accounting, that will take me into their actual fund accounting and donor management account with Applos that, again, is completely unique from any other client that you have. So this is their own set of books. And once you're in here, you can pretty much do anything that you'd like. If you have access either as a read and write privileges or a read only, you can dive through their reports. So you can run any kind of financial or transaction type report that you need. You can also go to the accounting tab here and customize their chart of accounts if there's changes that need to be made, as well as entering transactions, managing fixed assets, running allocations. Any of the Applos functionality here is available to you as an oversight user for each client that you service. And then once you've gone through here and completed those tasks, if you go back to the dashboard, you can click Go Back to My Oversight, and then that will take you back up to the kind of main dashboard here, where then you can dive into another account, manage their transactions, pull their reports, get any information you need, and then back to the oversight and on to the next one. So you can see if you have this to use for all of your nonprofit or church clients, it can really kind of consolidate the amount of time that you're spending accessing files, performing services, and talking with your clients as well to make sure that everything is done on a timely basis. So as far as pricing goes for all of this, oversight itself as a tool is free, but really the only cost comes is when you're creating or managing a client. You have two options. You can either choose to pay their invoice for them, and you can choose, any one of these. In fact, it's one of the, It's not here. I'm sorry, it's in the subscription here up in settings. You can choose which clients you're paying for, so whether or not you're the owner, right? So if you choose to pay the subscription, then that cost will come to you. But otherwise, you can choose to not pay it, and then each client is responsible for their subscription payment themselves. There are some discounts that are available if you do consolidated billing, and the first discount takes place after you've crossed 10 clients, and then it kind of grows from there. But if you were to have a service and consolidate the billing, you can pay the total invoice and then choose to kind of invoice your clients for whatever services you provide for them, however you'd like. Or if you push the cost to them, then you as just overall just kind of an auditor, or just someone to kind of bounce in and out between clients, there's actually no cost for you to have this kind of functionality. So that's where the pricing comes into play. Yeah. A couple of things I wanted to mention here on the left hand side, excuse me, settings is where you can update your users. You can provide multiple people access to the oversight as well. So if you had, say, a bookkeeping staff and 3 or 4 different people needed to have access to each client to go in and perform services, you can add them here as a user. You can also manage your subscription and view an activity log of who's logged in and who's done what and when actions were taken. Contacts, you won't need so much on the oversight. Contacts is more of a feature for the individual clients. But reports and accounting here. Reports is where you can run the consolidated reports if you need to, like a consolidated income statement or balance sheet. And then for the accounting, this is where you can create a standard chart of accounts that either one can be shared across the sub-organizations to, again, run consolidated reports. Or let's say you are a CPA or bookkeeping service and you kind of have a templated chart of accounts that you use when kind of taking on a new client. You can have that created here as well. So that if you have that chart of accounts created and you go to your dashboard and create a new organization, then you can create them, choose what products they'll use, whether or not you'll pay the invoice, add a user for that client, and then add. And then that will actually start them with that chart of accounts that you've already kind of designed and templated here in the oversight. Okay. One last little tool you can do here in Oversight is e-file. So we are 990 certified e-filers to the IRS for the 990N and 990EZ forms. So if you have need of filing those forms for your clients, you can just start a new filing here, choose the N or the EZ, and then that would walk through kind of the wizard thing that we've set up for each one. And there are costs that apply for different years, but let me know if you have any questions on that. Okay. Alrighty, so that's a very kind of high level and quick snapshot of what Oversight can do for you as a CPA or bookkeeper, as well as your clients or the people you're affiliated with, of having some very true fund accounting for affordable price points. So what I'd like to do now is open it up for some kind of Q&A time. And this can be either questions that I can answer, or if there's any kind of particular feature you'd like to see, let me know that as well. But I'll give you just a minute or two here to submit some questions, and then we'll go from there. Okay, we've got a couple questions here. Most of the questions here are kind of related to what types of reports are available. So from the oversight, again, you can only do consolidated reports. So there's a consolidated income statement and balance sheet, but really that only applies to organizations that have those kind of multiple chapters or locations. But specific to what a kind of our normal suite of reports are, if you dive into one of these clients here, say the animal shelter, and then go to reports, we have a couple different areas of reports. At the very top, you've got quick access, which just means anything that you've kind of starred as a favorite or accessed recently will show up here in this kind of top section. Below that is our financial section, and this is where you get into the standard financial reports that are pretty universally the same across softwares, but where Applos comes in is we can have an income statement and a balance sheet, a transaction list, and a budget, all of those reports for the entire organization, also by fund, and also by tag. Okay, so let's take a look at one of these. So here's your standard kind of P&L report, and let's do maybe last year to get some, I guess there's no information in this account. Let me go to a different one real quick. Let's see, might be something here. Reports, income statement. Nope, not that one either. Well, let me get to a different account. Let me get out the oversight. This is more for like a testing kind of purposes. So let me get into my individual test account. Okay, so here's an income statement. Let's take a look at one for last year. So this income statement is a standard P&L report. Here's your income accounts all the way numerically from top to bottom with their totals on the very right-hand side, as well as the expenses with the net income or loss here at the bottom. And then you can customize the report to either show sub-accounts if you have them, also subtotal by group, and then you can choose to include zero balances as well. But let's just put those two on and see what that does. So that will put the report into a little bit more detail to where if there are sub-accounts, you can see them indented here, they'll show and then also kind of show what the total kind of for the parent and sub-accounts are as well. And then it's also subtotaling by group. So if you've grouped your income and expenses to have more description, like administrative expenses versus fundraiser expenses, then that will show that kind of subtotal for the grouping as well. So this is your standard P&L. Now, what you can do here in Applos is actually run this P&L or income statement by fund as well. So I'm going to do this by fund again for last year. And what this is going to do is it's going to give me a separate report for each fund. So these accounts and figures you're seeing here are specifically for just my general fund money that has come in and gone out for last year. If I scroll down here, I've also got a couple options for missions fund. And again, these figures are just for the missions fund that I've recorded, and then the building fund. So there's that. So instead of having a total, it's showing me, well, your total is actually the sum of all of the different funds that have been used. So here's the totals for each fund. You can also see this in a different way of what we call comparative income statement by fund. The difference here is instead of having them on their own report, these will show as columns. So let me go ahead and add all of these in here. So apply. Then for last year. So again, this is the same report. So it's showing me from top to bottom, here's all my income, expense accounts, their names, their total. I can add here on the very right. So there's the total, but then that total is actually made up of how they've been used across the funds. So you can see that the total here is now all general fund money here. This one is missions fund money. Where's an example of where it's both? Maybe down here in the expenses. Well, I don't have any at the moment, but if there was an expense that was used, oh, here we go. So here's an expense that's been used across all three funds. So the total here is $1,568.95, but 20 of that was for the missions fund. $1,428.95 was for the general fund, and then building fund had the remainder here for 120. All of that sums up to the total, but again, it's spread out across the different funds. And at the very bottom, we also have this little summary thing here, which shows you what the beginning fund balance was as of the beginning of the period. So this is last year. So as of the end of 2015, this was the fund balance. Here's the kind of other fund balance movements. So something that has either gone into or out of the fund other than income and expense. So like a fund transfer or even like a payment of liabilities or something like that, that would show here on this line. And then here's the net income figure from above, and then the ending fund balance. And this ending fund balance will correlate with the balance sheet by fund as well, because again, it's kind of including all types of transactions here from beginning to end. So let's take a look at a balance sheet. Same kind of thing. You can do a balance sheet by fund to where each one is its own report. So here's the general fund balance sheet, and then here's the missions fund balance sheet. Or you can do the comparative one where it shows them as columns. So let me add the total. So again, here's my total balance sheet here on the very right for each one of my asset and liability and equity accounts. But then that is actually made up of all of these individual fund balances. Now this is where people start to go a little bit cross-eyed sometimes, but so let me take a minute and explain that the overall fund balance here down at the bottom of equity. So let's say the missions fund here, the total balance is $13,230. That is the total fund balance. But what that means is that it's the sum of all of the assets of that fund minus the liabilities of that fund. So up at the top, in my checking account, I have a $3,725 balance for my missions fund in my checking account. In my savings account, I also have a missions fund balance for $2,400, and then same with petty cash and here in accounts receivable. So all of those summed up equal the total fund balance that I have down here at the bottom. Same with general fund. So here's my general fund money as it's split out across my checking, savings, and petty cash accounts, as well as accounts receivable and work truck. But then I also have a liability against it to where my total assets here are almost 90,000, but then I have about 43 acting against it. So my overall fund balance at the end of the day is $45,000 and change. Okay. So again, each fund in Applos is kind of like its own little mini organization within the larger total of the nonprofit, to where each fund has its own income statement, its own transaction list, its own budget, as well as its own balance sheet potentially as well. Okay. Okay, well, it doesn't look like there's any other questions for today, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. But I did want to plug one last thing here, and that's if you have any additional questions regarding how Applos as well as Applos oversight can be used for either yourself or your nonprofit or a nonprofit that you're involved with, or you as a CPA or a bookkeeper, any sort of professional service there. We're always happy to answer questions, and we actually have a kind of a point person that can help out with that relationship, and her name is Caitlin. You can reach her at caitlin@applos.com, and that is Katelen @aplos.com, and just tell her that you're a CPA or a bookkeeper or just an interested party, and then she'll follow up with what we can provide there for you if you have any questions. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for showing up. I appreciate you taking the time. And again, if we can help with anything at all, just let us know. Talk to you soon. Bye.